Hi everyone, it's Cindy. Welcome back to Studioloo. I'm here today with a flip through of another fairy journal from this collection. This is one of the bigger journals. That's what I have left coming up from now on, are just 3 more very big journals that are fairy themed. So this one is the Tale of the Enchanted Snail, as I'm calling it, and it's a puzzle front cover. You will see it is a chunky monkey. It's actually 2, 4, 5 signatures, quite chunky. So let me open the lace here. So on the front you see this is a beautiful puzzle. I've gilded around the edges. I've added gold brads to hold it in place and kind of give it some more decoration. There is fairy sparkle bits in different places on here around the fairy's wings and around this little fairy on the snail. So we have a moth here, flowers, lots of fairies, and of course the snail. So I'll just tie it up again for a moment just to kind of show you the whole outside of the journal first. This is made inside a vintage book that I hand painted. It is like a greenish tone and it's been gilded over with lots of sparkle. The spine is covered in locally made iridescent fairy paper. You can see some gold rickrack here behind it. On this one, the signatures are these purple threads that are visible. And you'll see a gold eyelet here, and it's holding onto this lovely spine dangle. We have all sorts of different beads, lampwork beads and semi-precious stones, vintage beads, wooden beads, vintage jewelry pieces, and so on. These are all threaded on waxed linen. And then this is the back of the journal. You can see lots of the fairy dust back here, and you can get an idea of the color of this. So it's like a green tone with a bit of blue to it, like a darker teal, and it has fairy dust. And then there's an eyelet on the back. That's what holds on to the lace that ties the journal closed. So we will go ahead and take a look at the side. So there's lots of bits and bobs, beaded head pins that I've made, lots of lace and flowers that stick out the side. So we'll go ahead and open it on up. Now the theme in this collection is that I've used some kind of an authentic vintage photograph, and I've modified it to add fairy wings. This one's particularly beautiful. It is from A. Spinks, Woodstock, Ontario. These are all from the 1930s through 1950s. They're part of an estate sale that I got, and this little girl is just adorable. The inside cover here, the fly papers that I've used, or the end papers rather, are just this really pretty soft gray floral. And there is a tabbed pocket here, and inside we have a couple things. So one is the blackbirds from a vintage field guide, and then we have this little fairy that's just popped in here that you can write on. The first page that opens here is this lovely sparkling paper. It's sparkle embossed. It has a bird here, and some lace has been sewn on. On the lace there is a head pin, a beaded head pin. This side we have some stenciling and a little fairy stamp down here. This is a painted page with a little fairy here and here. This is actually a Japanese illustration from a Japanese fairy story. This is a large pocket with one of Cicely Mary Barker's journal entries with this little fairy here, and then this is a whole page from that same book from Fairyopolis. So this is a bunch of different things that she's written about, the cherubic face of this fairy that she's seen, how they have pointed ears. She writes about their wings. Yeah, so on the back it's like a large piece of stationery to write on. Some pink marbled construction paper with some of my batik dyed fabric. This is a tip out. It's a little floral family album, and I thought this would be really fun to either draw or write into. And then the page tips out on this side as well, and we have a pocket here. The top butterfly flight speed is 12 miles per hour. I wonder if fairies can fly that fast. And we have some more butterflies back here, and then we have this postcard of a Barker fairy. This is the Forget-Me-Not fairy, and it's just a wee baby, so cute. Cabbage dyed paper, pocket down here, some botanicals. This is one of my watercolors. It's on watercolor paper. It's metallic watercolor. I've added a Barker fairy, and then this is some watercolor leaf printing that I did, and it's just a journaling card. And then more stenciling here and some fairy wing fabric. This nice soft gray polka dot paper, stenciling. This is a rhododendron page with some painted space here from a book called Vancouver is a Garden. It's a really beautiful botanical book. This side we have this squirrel pocket here. More of those garden images, maple tree square, and I love that lamppost. And this is a large envelope. It says the fairy wood. And on this side we have a little label, and then when you open it up, a little tip out from a Fairyopolis mini page. And then here, this is from another fairy book. And we have a fairy here with some mushrooms. And then more fairies back here. Talks about the languages that fairies understand and speak and some of their emotions. And then this page is cabbage dyed with some fabric ruffle. And we have a little sort of flip out pocket here. This is from the Fairyopolis book. It's about Midsummer's Eve. And then we have this image here, and this man, I'm not sure if you can see this, is someone sleeping, and there's all these little fairies on his face. They're planning some kind of an expedition. And then we have a little fairy stamp down here and one of my vellum butterfly tags that's been collaged. And then this is just some beautiful fairy art, a fairy verse. Since once I sat upon a promontory and heard a mermaid on a dolphin's back, uttering such dulcet and harmonious breath that the rude sea grew civil at her song. William Shakespeare, The Tempest. And then on this side we have one of my, these are in my shop, these are pine cone stack pockets. So it's a digital that I've created that you'll see. I'll take all these bits and bobs out and show them to you. So it's a pine cone, and it has a triple pocket. You can construct this. And then this is a sparrow that I've added to the front of it that's also part of the digital. And then this is the coloring book page that I've added it to. So then you can tuck all these little bits in there. Some mushrooms, a little fairy with some mushrooms, a little baby fawn here. Just kind of tuck all those in there. Some oak leaves and acorns, a little monarch butterfly, some dandelions, and this wise old owl. And those all can tuck in the 3 pockets that are in here. I know I didn't put this back together as neatly as it was when I had it. There we go. It's a little better. And just make sure we're all in all the pockets. This one needs to go in here, I think. And then we'll put our little owl up front. Okay, and then behind that, I've also made it a pocket. And this is an old, I can't remember if this is Arthur Conan Doyle. There's a photographer that did, these are public domain images, and it's printed on coffee dyed paper. And it's just these little girls with these fairies that were photographed in this wood. And it's all these black and white photographs. It's just a beautiful series. This is some cabbage dyed paper. This is a large pocket of this little fairy on an owl. And inside here we have the Greater Celandine fairy, and on back the Song of the Bee Orchis fairy. And then more of that botanical paper. We have a fuchsia here. This is a pocket. Many trees are significant to fairies, in particular oak, ash, and thorn. And then this is one of my little stitch ephemera holding cards. So these are bits of threads that are wrapped around. The whole thing is stitched around, so there's writing space on back, and then it's holding on to these loose bits of ephemera. Some stenciling and some gold leaves. More of that fairy wing. Blackthorn, bluebell. This is from one of the Flower Fairies books. Box tree, burdock, buttercup. Cabbage dyed paper. This is from one of those family photograph albums, again with the botanicals. We have fairies up here, and it says a book of fairies. Some pink marbled paper. This is a poem called The Fairy Queen, and we have some lace or some ribbon down the side with some rainbow sparkles here, or sequins. And then more of that Japanese fairy illustration. And then we have a pocket here with these beautiful moths and pine. And this is a journal card, more Barker fairies. We have fairies on the back as well. Some stenciling. This is just some nice, it's a construction paper, but it's a linen one. It's a really nice one. And then on this side we have some beautiful paper with that sparkle embossing, and we move into the second signature now. We have this woodland scene. We have a little mouse hiding in there. Not sure if you can see him, but this tips out, and then there he is from behind, and there's a snail and an ant. This is some of the fairy paper that you'll see throughout this series. It's iridescent and sparkly and locally made. And then we have a little glued down vintage illustration of some apple blossoms. Then a little pocket here. This is an Amity Bloom tabbed index card with botanicals. Tucks in on this old sheet of paper. Then we have a little tuck spot with a fairy, and inside an Amity Bloom pocket tag with a little journal card. Writing space on the back of that as well. Stenciling, some unicorns from a fairy and unicorn book, painted space for writing, and some nice lace down the side. And then more, this is sort of like a waterfall. It's painted space. We have a little fairy there and some cabbage dyed paper. This is a digital of some Barker fairies and mushrooms. This is another digital, just beautiful paper, and some cabbage dyed paper. This is the Children's Garden, Scarlet and Sage, all from that Vancouver is a Garden book. Exploring the Fairy Realm, and this is a collaged pocket with some watercolor here. And then this is a journal card. Some eco-dyed papers. This is another of those tip outs from the photography album. And then some beautiful vintage gift wrap paper in this pansy. I really love this paper, and I used all of it in this series. This is a pocket. It has journal entries from Cicely Mary Barker, the Fairyopolis book. And up here, this is a journal card with these cute little guys here. These are like little groundhogs. And then we have a fairy up here. And this is just kind of stapled on, and it just kind of adds to the fun of the woodland fairy kind of feeling. And then we have this little frog on a mushroom with a little butterfly on his head, and some stenciling. And this is from Fairyopolis. This journal belongs to Cicely Mary Barker. And in case you're not aware, she's the author and illustrator of the Flower Fairies that inspired this whole series for me. This is Marguerite Hilling, Nevada. This is from a vintage rose book. A little grasshopper there. It's just a big journal card. And some tea-dyed eyelet lace and a beaded head pin. I absolutely love this floral rose wreath. It's so pretty. And some eco-printed paper. And then we have a fairy here with some, on a cabbage dyed pocket with some collage on another of those Vancouver is a Garden pages. This has just some fun kind of fabric and lace hanging here. And we have a fairy and some stitching. And this has a fairy verse. It is the season now to go about the country high and low, among the lilacs, hand in hand and 2 by 2 in fairyland. From Robert Louis Stevenson, it is the season. And that just tucks. This is actually an envelope, so it tucks into the envelope. And then we have a collaged pocket over here with some silk flowers attached to it, and a little fairy, and then another of the vellum butterfly tags, cabbage dyed paper, some fun digitals, sort of a bumblebee fairy. And this is cabbage dyed paper with a rusty paper clip holding onto this coloring book fairy. And on back there's just lots of writing space from an old scrapbook. So that just clips on here. And then another painted page with some fun trim down the side and a beaded head pin. More painted space with fairies, stenciling. This is from an old, a vintage Enid Blyton book. I was going to say Edith Holden, Enid Blyton. And some nice illustration from that book. It's from the book Adventures with Pip. or The Adventures of Pip. And then there is a little butterfly there and some washi tape, more of the fairy paper. This is handmade, beautifully textured paper with some flowers stitched down the side. We have a beautiful belly band here of this hummingbird fairy. This is honestly my favorite thing about this journal, I think. And then you can just tip it up and write some secrets back there. This is a chance to see this far off place, and we have some florals down here, more botanicals, eco-dyed paper with a lace tab, some vellum, been printed with this beautiful agate, and this is one of my skyline pages with a little frog at the top here. This says Enchanting and has some birds in a nest and some mushrooms. This is like the flight of the butterfly. Would a fairy fly in exactly the same way as a butterfly, I wonder? And this pulls out, and we have a little sort of a grandmother fairy here, and she's got this little cloud on a stick. And then a little pocket that's been collaged, and it has some watercolor swatch on old ledger and fairies on it. And then we have this index card style journal card with some flowers and a little frog on a mushroom. More cabbage dyed paper, some nice green stripy paper, and this is a little collaged envelope with some Amity Bloom and some beautiful botanical stamps, and then a flower back here. This is from a card that I received, and then we have these little fairies, like a little journal card inside. And so that just clips onto this page. And then this is a really cute fairy digital. Another digital of that fun print. Some fabric that says Fairy Whispers and some blue paper. This is a page from like one of those photograph albums. It says Favorite Things. It's lined paper, and I've done this collage of sparkly florals over here. A little pansy. And it tips over, and it has some roses here, and this is a tuck spot, a little bit of botanical peeking out, and then this is a card that you can open up, and there's more writing space inside. This is like a really fun iridescent paper. And then some sparkly leaves. It says Some of the Great Moments. Another text spot with some old journaling, or sorry, some fairy art from the Shirley Barber fairy book. And then a little word snippet that says To Understand the Mysteries. We have a little fairy here. Botanical pocket on a digital page. This is the Eyebright fairy, and it's a postcard. Another fun fairy digital, some botanicals, more stripy and dyed papers, a field guide to fairies. So this is a little pocket, and it has a little booklet inside of all of these different things that were written from Cicely Mary Barker. And this is a botanical page. And inside we have a little page from a book that's called Mouskin, and it has this little mouse. And there he is again. You see his little shadow under a leaf, and there's a little bit of the story there, and it's just a fun little spot you can write on. And then we have this pocket made from this beautiful paper on this botanical paper, and this is a large journal card, and this is sort of an ancient fairy creature in this fairy wood, and you see the greenwood face behind him. Another skyline page with fairies and botanicals, pine cones, mushrooms, an owl, some more vellum, some more eco-printed paper. This is a large pocket, a tabbed pocket with botanicals and the little verse here about fairy bread. And a large journal card with a Shirley Barber fairy, mushrooms. Tucks up here. And then over here we have a little tip out pocket with a mushroom here, and another fairy journal entry about library books and more fairy research. Over here, in the spirit of friendship, country folk will often leave cakes and other food out for the fairies, as well as buckets of clean water for the fairies to wash their babies in. So we have a botanical page here, and then this large journal card. This is, I believe, yeah, more Shirley Barber fairies. And then this is another of those botanical pullouts with some oak leaves. We have a locust here. And then it has like a little peek through window so you can see right through here. This is another little woodsy pocket, and we have these sweet little deers. It's a journal card. Handmade paper again with flowers stitched down the side. This is a beautiful book illustration of a fairy walking on all these leaves. And then the illustration over here continues, and she's talking to a little mouse. And then I've added this little tuck spot. It says beautiful effects, and it's collaged. And then this journal card of some more Shirley Barber fairies and birds. Just tuck that in that way because it's a little more narrow. There we go. And then we have some stenciling and lace with a beaded head pin. And then we have the periwinkle fairy. And then just a lovely little botanical on some pretty paper. A Midsummer Night, that's a little pocket on this cute little bug page. And then a little Amity Bloom tag with this fairy, little journal card. Some butterflies, some cabbage dye paper with fabric. This is a large tuck kind of belly band with some cashmere silk fabric up top. This beautiful fairy. And then inside we have an Eric Kincaid fairy. This is one of the rainbow fairies. And that's a large journal card that just tucks on in here. And some painted space and a little fairy and a bunny. A green page with a dragonfly. The Song of the Hawthorn Fairy. A Song of the Privet Fairy, a little fairy stamp on eco dyed paper, some beautiful fairy art, and more, with some sheep here and fairies. Oh, where do fairies hide their heads when snow lies on the hills? The frost has spoiled their mossy beds and crystallized their rills. Thomas Haynes Bailey, oh, where do the fairies hide their heads? This is a big collage kind of pocket with a fish and a fairy and some threads and yarns here. And another journal card of Eric Kincaid, rainbow fairies, and a little bird down there. That just tucks up in here. Another botanically printed eco page. Another Barker fairy, the blackberry. The Song of the Slow Fairy. A little fairy here. And some of my hand-dyed batik fabric with a beaded head pin on a botanical page. Oopsie. Oh, I have to unloop it from this lace. When I was putting the head pins, I was doing it with the book closed, so I caught a few things. There we go. And then we have a coloring book page from a fairy book and a little pocket with these beautiful birds. And this is just a tag of paper made from avocado dyed paper, cabbage dyed paper, stenciling, more of those cute little bugs. This is a Shirley Barber fairy pocket with an Amity Bloom tabbed index card, the Laburnum fairy, and some lace down the side here to go with that yellow. Stenciling. This is a large tuck spot of a Cicely Mary Barker fairy and a beautiful book page behind with little fairies sitting in some flowers here. And this is more Shirley Barber fairies. Big journal card. And then on this side, those fairies on the book page continue. We have a tuck spot from Cicely Mary Barker's Fairyopolis, and this is some maybe hard to see because there's so much going on, but it's beautiful fairy art, and it's a big journal card with painted paper on the back. And here we have a little collage tuck spot on fairy paper, and I've added this fun, this is a page from a vintage botanical book. Some washi tape and some cabbage dyed paper, just a fairy collage. I love the illustrations here, these are so cute. And then a little fairy card that I've made, and it pops open as so, and more writing space on back, and it says petals fall and thistledown grows. some beautiful paper, stenciling, a painted page with botanicals, a little fairy pocket with these Eric Kincaid blue fairies, just a little light fairy page, cabbage dyed paper with tea-dyed lace, botanical paper, stenciling, vintage gift wrap paper, the center of the signature with these two fairies, botanical vellum sticker, cabbage dyed paper, red campion fairy, the song of the greater celandine fairy, an upper belly band here with some writing, and that's another botanical page. This is the Tales of Grateful and Helpful Fairies, and this is out of the Fairyopolis book. The Helpful Elves, the Bigging Fairy, the Fairy Baby, the Broken Ped. Yeah, so, and there's journaling space on back. Just a nice little piece of ephemera. More painted page with botanicals and stenciling. Some nice papers, tuck spot. Again, love these illustrations. And another Barker Fairy postcard. This one is from the U Fairy. Some cabbage dyed paper, butterfly here, and the last page is fairy paper with some starched cotton vintage lace. And then we have a pocket at the back. It's a bureau style pocket with the grackles and cowbirds from a vintage field guide. And we've reached the end of this journal. So if you are seeing this video, that means that this journal is in my shop. There's only a couple to go after this one. I'm trying to finish up all of the videos. We have two more journals that are of about the same size as this one, the larger journals for sure. So yeah, thank you for hanging out with me. You can find the listing for this down below in the description box, so the link to my Etsy shop and my other social media. Have a great day, and thanks for joining me. Bye for now.